In today's video, we're going to be going over 4 killer examples of successful Instagram campaigns. These are recent campaigns. I'm putting together this video as part of an update to an earlier in-depth guide that we put together with over 25 successful Instagram campaign examples and analysis. Let's look at each of these examples. I'm going to give you a breakdown. I'm going to give you my expert analysis in terms of what is effective with them, perhaps a bit of what is not working, and we're going to look at what types of results are they getting. So how are these examples going to be beneficial to you? Well, if you're looking to just model what works, I mean, that's a good reason to be studying examples like what I'm about to show you here, because it's a lot easier to model what is working and just, in other words, copy it, but make it your own in terms of the strategy, in terms of the approach, in terms of just the tactical execution of it, than it is to just constantly kind of experiment. And maybe you just don't have a big enough audience yet, or even if you do, switching it up and finding new blue ocean, red ocean being markets that are tapped, you know, that they've already seen it all, they've seen the messaging already. Blue ocean being kind of like the new wide open opportunity that you can tap into and actually get a result and get engagement from the market. So without further ado, let's get into the first example. So here's some background on this first example. This comes from Wendy's. This is in relation to something that happened in the news in the world of sports. Basically, an athlete, Jason Kelce, he lost his Super Bowl, 40 or 52 ring. And it was in the news. People knew about it, especially if you followed sports. And Wendy's is a mass market brand. Significant segment of who visits their fast casual restaurants are people who are into sports and who are following this debacle that happened, where, again, you lost. It's almost like losing the trophy in a way of something that could be one of the most important highlights of your entire career as an athlete. So it was in the news and it was relevant for that reason. And if you followed some of the past content that we've made, you know, we talk about the concept of drafting, where basically something happens in the news. And just like if you have 2 race cars or even runners, but 2 race cars, there's like a drag effect in terms of like the car in front needs to push air out of the way. And then the car that's running behind it actually gets the benefit of the harder work and more fuel that was spent by the car in front. So that's called drafting. You're drafting off of the news because it's already in people's minds and it's relevant for that reason because it's happening recently or now. And so people are aware of this and you're kind of like latching onto this idea and then taking it in a new direction that's related to your brand. So that's what we see Wendy's doing here. And it's funny, right? It's very matter of fact. It's very kind of like almost trolling or in your face. 2 words with the post. Found it. What makes it funny as well is that the ring is big. It's just sitting. It's not buried. Like, they could imagine the different ways that they could have designed this graphic, right? They could have designed the ring off to the side with like a little bit of dribble, meaning that it was in the chili or whatever. Because again, the context is that Jason Kelce, the athlete, he lost his ring in a bowl of chili while playing some game, and Wendy's is basically trolling him or taunting him, you know, to promote their chili and their brand at the same time. They could have shown you a picture. Another way of designing this image is they could have not had the text on it, right? They could have just shown the ring and the chili. It's like, well, that's not complete. It's not enough. For this to work as well as it does, you want to go far enough. You want to give enough context, right, for the humor to really get across, for that tone. They could have also, again, showed or placed the ring in the image like underneath the chili, kind of like poking out. Instead, it's just placed, just plopped like right on top. It's like comedically big, like a cartoon version of the ring being that big. It's just plopped right on top and just found it. So the delivery, along with the design, it's perfect. It's perfect. And so again, this works because it's drafting off the news. It has that perfect balance between not explaining too much, but explaining just enough, communicating with the right tone, no capitals, no period. Found it. Jason, We found your ring. The ring is comedically big, it just plopped right on top. It's just absurd. So it works. And the results that it earned, over 9,346 likes. Across campaigns, that's just on Instagram, or at least at the time of the screenshot. At least 1 million impressions total combined across X and Instagram. Now, here's some analysis from another blogger who was writing about this. Social media is not a safe place. People get teased, celebrities get trashed, and everybody enjoys humor when it's directed at someone else. Very true. I mean, in terms of jokes, there's always the risk of offending someone, but honestly, like, that's typical of humor. There's usually someone or something that is the butt of the joke, as the expression goes. Doesn't mean that they are a butt, you know, it just means like they are the subject of the ridicule, which is also happens to be humorous. As funny, it continues, as funny as Wendy's can get, it's still a loss of a symbol. I guess he's referring to the loss of the ring. So they get extra points for subtle rage bait. Okay. I mean, the analysis is pretty basic there, and I agree with all that. But again, I think why it works, it's got that perfect balance to achieve the humor. And it's not complicated. You see it. Even if you don't know what's going on, you can there's enough context that you can know, okay, this is probably something from the news. It's ridiculous. It's meant to be funny. They also got, in addition, they were featured in press, okay? So there were news articles that were written about them trolling. Excellent job, Wendy's, on that. And so the takeaways for you are you can use humor, but you really have to kind of craft it, because if you don't have it coming through audio or video, you really have to kind of balance it out. Like I would guess that they workshopped this image 100 different ways and had a whole team of people just kind of balancing out all the little details, because it seems very simple, but the delivery was just excellent. Because again, they could have used different words. They could have said more words. Jason, I found it. It's not, it just doesn't quite nail it. Everything, the way that it is, nails it. It's possible too, you know, sometimes you have those campaigns where they're one-off and you're just like, I don't know why this worked or why this hit, but it did. So sometimes you're gonna find that just by doing social media iteratively and testing and whatnot. But I think there's some key principles that you can take away here. So this next example is from what looks like, I assume to be a nonprofit from New York. Part of how I found this was that some other site was indexing social media posts. And this one, there were like 9 tiles that were on the screen showing like different Instagram campaigns. And this one, boom, just immediately jumped out to me. So what immediately to you is working about this, or just kind of capturing your attention? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. There's no heart. If you've been on this earth for longer than, I don't know, 20 years or whatever, you know that people have the I Love New York shirts. New York is like one of the most popular, well-known, if not the most well-known city in the world. And people have these shopping bags and T-shirts, you know, that say, I love New York. It's very common. It's you know, websites even sometimes have, you know, made in New York, heart with love. But this works because it is a pattern interrupt. All right. There's no heart. It's just I, New York. So immediately you're like, okay, your brain's trying to process it because you've seen the pattern, you know, over like I love New York, I love New York. But then you just take out the heart. It's working on multiple levels because it's a pattern interrupt. There's no heart. Your brain knows the pattern. I love New York. The heart is missing. It's also drafting. It's not drafting off of news, though. It's a drafting off of an established pattern and or brand, if you want to call the I Love New York. I think it's public domain, but it's still sort of like a brand in a way. It's drafting off that brand pattern that's been established in your mind. And you kind of want to understand it. It's like, why? And moreover, too, from the other social media campaigns, it's simple, right? Instagram, it's a visual content sharing social network. I mean, you're not really posting in the same way that you're posting on something like Facebook or LinkedIn. It's visual, and our brains are processing images faster than reading words on a screen. That's how we are evolved and adapted to the environment. Eyes were working and functioning before we had language, tens of thousands of years before. So if you want to stand out, having a pattern interrupt like this, it works, but it also works similar to the Wendy's example. So what are the parallels that you can draw between this and the Wendy's example? The Wendy's example is simple. right? And this is also simple. It's a button on a shirt, okay? I actually didn't even notice that part. All that I noticed was the I blank New York, the pattern interrupt. And so you want to learn more about it. And then directly beneath it is the context. And notice the context, it could have been, where else could it have been? It could have been at the top. But then I might have read that first, and it may have kind of corrupted the instant viewing experience where the image is dominated by the main thing, which is the I blank New York image. Again, the hook, it's right there. And again, how would you know to not put it at the top or on the left side or maybe on the right side, kind of like in a column? Well, we read left to right and top to bottom, at least in the English language, right? Some languages are different, but English is, also considered, the universal language. At the time of this video, I don't know, 10 years from now, perhaps China has taken over, hopefully not.
China, 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 China.
So the context given, though, in the way that it's given is spot on. New York needs organ donors. New York needs organ donors. And then it has the name of the brand, Live on New York, life, pass it on. So pretty clear call to action. And it's saying what the problem is. And it's also explaining what the benefits are of being an organ donor. You are helping to save the lives of other people. You got the brand, you got just enough context, not too much. It doesn't dominate. So it's overall excellent. With this campaign, there aren't definitive results in terms of saying, well, we know that this generated. And it's a little bit difficult to measure in terms of someone signing up for an organ donation, because they may or may not go through Live on New York. It's also a public service campaign in general. And this is, again, a nonprofit. So we can't really say, well, revenue increased 5-10%. What we can say is that this post got some elevated engagement compared to posts around the same time. It got about triple the number of posts for one that came after it. It received about at least quadruple the number of likes the one before it. But I want to show you something else that caught my eye. So these are some other posts, and it's a little bit sensitive a topic, so I'm going to do my best to handle it, with kid gloves. But I think we can learn from it. So the other posts, again, they're getting in like the 30s, one's for 40, and then this one received 587 likes, okay? And what does it say? It says, remembering Brittany McCarthy, remembering Brittany, who in 2021 saved 3 lives as an organ donor hero. All right. Now, I want to be sensitive about this because losing a loved one or a child, let alone a loved one, is incredibly serious and sad. And I hope you never have to experience that. Life is tough, though. And I want to say, we respect the person here who passed away, and we wish the best for her family. In terms of what we can learn as marketing professionals, though, just observing the engagement on this post, which I believe is positive. Why is this one an outlier? 587. Well, of course, it's dealing with death. It's dealing with someone who looks to be in her mid to late 20s. And it's talking about, because putting it in context, because she was an organ donor, she saved 3 lives. And it's pretty kind of factual and logical there in the way that it presents saved 3 lives as an organ donor. Now, I want to show you another example that actually received even, this was only a few posts prior, a very similar setup. So remember, the initial example we looked at received about 4 to 5 times as many of the typical likes as other posts. And we're dealing with a smaller account here. Live on New York is a nonprofit with just under 4,000 followers. So that one was a little bit of an outlier with the I blank, taking out the heart, I blank New York campaign. But then we go back a few more and we find the first organ donor hero post, all right, featuring Brittany McCarthy. And then who sadly passed away, along with, it looks like, Bella Treza, who, again, our sympathies extended to the family. But this one, for whatever reason, we're going to think about it here, received more than 10 times the amount of likes and engagement. So why is that the case? Well, again, we could just say it's the algorithm, something perhaps in the Instagram algorithm decided to really push this one out. And that's honestly probably a factor. But usually the algorithm is responding, regardless of what a social network is on, It's responding to what are people engaging with. So, well, what can we notice that's different about this one? Well, obviously the person in the photo is different. So perhaps that's a factor for whatever reason. The colors are different too. We have kind of blue and white. It's more of a consistent. The previous one had blue font, white background, green at the top. The green kind of doesn't go so well. This one is more consistent. It also matches with the dress that Bella is wearing in this photo. And there's also a story. Unlike the previous post, with Bella's post, there's more of a story, and it's talking about an accident. And again, the subject matter is life and death. Death coming in the form of someone who decided to be an organ donor and then sadly passed away. And then life, the viewers, we are alive, we're seeing this, we are saddened by it. It's part of the human experience. And even in this case, I think Bella was 17. She was also younger. So there's more sympathy, or just like people tend to be just sympathetic more automatically to like little kids. Not that Bella is a little kid here. She's 17, but she's slightly above being a little kid, still a teenager, again, sadly. But I think that's a factor. We have a bit of a story here, the colors as well, compared to the original poster we're looking at, which I think, again, was still affected by itself. But again, this is human, right? We see human faces. Our brains are tuned just by default to want to engage and see and be social in terms of like human faces. The other thing is more of a symbol. So it worked on that level and it gets attention, but this has a story and like a connection to humans and real life and death. One of the heaviest topics and concepts that we will ever have to deal with, because it is part of what gives meaning to our life and to the time that we have, because time is limited. So time is thus scarce and it has more value for that reason. So I'm not going to get deeper into like talking about marketing tactics here. I think everything pretty much speaks for itself. And again, I think fascinating to see from a marketing standpoint and data standpoint, but also I think really not much else to say. I think it speaks for itself in terms of like what lessons can you take away from it to benefit your business. And again, we extend our deepest condolences to the families of Bella and Brittany. So the next example is Movie, who partnered with Cinephile Club, which has a large following on Instagram for people who are just very into movies. I consider myself one of those people. I've seen lots and lots of movies, thousands, for the same reason that people love stories. You love movies. So Mubi partnered with Cinephile, and during Halloween, they wanted to promote a list of movies that were on Mubi. So I'm going to play this Instagram reel for you, and I just want you to feel it out, and then we will analyze a little deeper. So what did you feel about that? I mean, for me, and I think a lot of people might agree, especially if you're into, cinema. For me, I've actually heard of a number of these films. I've seen one or two, but the scenes that they picked, number one, they were interesting. You have in one scene there, a lamb. It looks like it's wearing a suit, and there's a man pointing a shotgun at the lamb. That's interesting. What's going to happen? Right? It's almost like an open loop in a story, and you're wondering, is the lamb evil? What's going on? So it's just visually interesting, and it's operating on the level of story, because it's like, well, it's interesting, and there's a whole story that we know attached to it because these are movies. So interesting. I want to learn more. I want to see one or two of those, because even if not all of it's interesting, it's fast enough. It keeps moving to the next one, the next one, the next one. And you're like, all right, I want to see several of those. The other part is to notice how like it starts and the music. So it starts off, very briefly, it shows the girl sitting in the grass, but that maybe is more meant for the end of the reel. It starts off, kid is on a bike, he's driving somewhere. So he's going somewhere. He's got a girl with him on the back of the bike, and they're going somewhere. And it gives you the title, Films of Different Subgenres to Watch This Halloween. So we have the relevance. It's drafting yet again, right? First example we saw with The Ring, and this example here, it's drafting. off the fact that Halloween is a holiday, and it's at the time of this that it was posted, it's drafting on the fact that it is Halloween season. The music is an interesting choice too, because it's not really, you can't really understand the words. It's kind of like mama, mama, mama. And I think that is intentional too, but it also feels nostalgic. Everyone wants to be young forever and drive around and have fun and just kind of whatever. It's something that is romanticized, and there's some sort of nostalgia about it. You know, things were always better in the past, we tend to think. We tend to romanticize the past. And something about how this starts and the music, it's not happy music. I mean, does this sound happy to you? No, it's a little bit Halloweenish, you could even say, so it kind of fits. It's a little bit searching, but it's not sad, and it's kind of not creepy either, but it has a little bit of a Halloween vibe, you could say, but it's kind of more of a searching, nostalgic vibe. And again, what we see in one scene, girl crying, and they're labeling each of them. So again, you're getting immediate, quick value of movie suggestions for your Halloween. Pick from this list what looks interesting to you. It's relevant, it's helpful, it's interesting, it emotionally, it's the music and the movement is nostalgic. I mean, there's blood, there's guns, there's evil, it's all kinds of emotion. Like even the titles, Crimes of the Future, even the titles of these kind of like offbeat, they call it subgenre, right? It's different. The colors, I mean, in this Inferno movie, and notice too, like user experience is good. It keeps the title of the movie on the screen as you're seeing clips of it. So it's fairly easy to pick out what you want, what you're interested in. And it gives you the subgenre. So this is 80s horror, but the colors are also interesting, kind of like neon, flames, purples, pinks. Almost as if it's like a story in of itself. It's almost like you were traveling on the motorbike, you got all these suggestions, and now you are at rest. And this received, in terms of results, over, as of today, 333,000 likes. And this was actually from a couple of years ago. So even by standards of what type of results they typically see today, this is still getting better engagement. Like their 6 most recent posts, this has done at a minimum more than 2 times better than their top performing most recent post. And they have significantly more followers and engagement now than they did 2 years ago. And by most standards, they're doing anywhere between 7 to 30 times better is how this has performed. So it's definitely an outlier. And this one absolutely got results. So some really useful takeaways for you there. To recap, I would say are be interesting, story, kind of open loops, if you will. If you don't know what an open loop is, go Google for grobo.com. You know, what is an open loop? And we have a whole article on it. It's a copywriting technique, but you can also use it in different contexts, like in video here. And this one is just kind of fun to finish up with. So we're going to look at Taco Bell to wrap this up. Taco Bell and their uniquely designed social media posts. So let's just go over to Taco Bell. So coincidentally, this is also a Halloween one. This one received 92,000 likes so far, which is about 3 to 10 times the number of likes that a lot of their other posts are getting, their other recent posts. Typically, it's between 2 to 10 times better. And it's still early, so this is probably going to pass 100,000 likes, maybe 150 or 200,000 likes. It's still circulating. So let's kind of look at the ones that are around it that didn't perform as well. So you have Taco Bell. It's kind of appealing, I guess, to on a nostalgic angle, I think is what's the text. Who else is this old? Relive the decades for a limited time. All right, interesting. I guess they're saying like when you were young and you went out drinking or something and you would stop at Taco Bell with friends. And yeah, I can relate to that. Some, I guess, fun memories picking up Taco Bell through the drive-through. So I guess that's what they're trying to say, but it's a little unclear. It's just kind of like posting the product. So yeah, I mean, it's doing all right. It's not, but it's definitely a fraction of this one. Let's come back to that in a second. This other one, they have 2 guys dressed in bed sheets. It looks like they're trying to sip soda or whatever that is that they're drinking through a straw. And let's look at one more. So this one has done a little bit better, but it's also been out for longer, so you got to take it with a grain. This is up to 33,000 likes at the moment, and trick or treat season. But again, it's a little bit of a pattern interrupt. It's drafting off of Halloween season, and you're like, oh, what's in the bag? As I saw, I thought it was candy, but then, oh no, it's the different Taco Bell sauces. So with that being said, here's one. Again, with the exception of the cinephile example, what's the pattern that we've noticed is simplicity. The amount of mental load or work that your brain has to do to actually digest and consume a post seems to be pretty well correlated with getting better results. The simpler it is, the less work or less mental load. You don't have to think about it. You just kind of get it. You can consume it fast. A few words, a single simple image. Although with the cinephile one, that is by number of likes, the highest liked post that we've looked at. But again, it's also a few years old. But still, that is operating on several different levels. And I think that's also why it's getting perhaps some of the best results. I think you could also make an argument that it is simple. If we go back to that for a second, if we look at the example, remember I mentioned that it was a partnership with the streaming service Mubi, and all of these films you could watch on Mubi. And again, they didn't inject that commercial call to action in this content. I mean, they could have, and they may have gotten potentially more sales in the short term, but perhaps the algorithm and people just liking it. People don't like things that feel commercial, right? This is why stock photos, if it feels like a stock photo, generally you don't want to include it in your landing pages or in any of your campaigns because it doesn't feel authentic. Authentic photos of the founder, of your team, of real people doing something. It's not staged. It's just kind of natural. People like and want to engage and are more likely to buy when it's like that, okay? So they didn't include it in the actual video reel. They just include a little at Mubi mentioning that you can stream 30 days for free using the link in my bio. Okay, so this is relevant and it's a nice kind of segue and it's not forced, right? So it's kind of helping to solve the problem of, well, I love these movies. Where do I go to watch them? Oh, go to Mubi. 30 days for free. Sweet. That's awesome. So great job. They didn't overdo it. Again, you can argue that this one is actually relatively simple. Now with this, only one taco per person. Again, it's simple. It's a pattern interrupt, meaning like you expect there to be candy, leave the candy out on Halloween, but the sign sort of reinforces it. So you can see the tacos, only one taco per person. It's also kind of relevant because Halloween season recently is kicked off and has passed. Halloween itself has passed. But there were a bunch of videos that were circulating when Halloween was happening of kids just running up these Ring doorbell cams and just like dumping all of the candy because people just leave out the candy. People trust people to not abuse it. And just, some kids just take the whole bowl, dump it in their bag, and even take the bowl sometimes too. So it's working on that level too. It's relatable on both a personal level and just kind of the overall what's happening in the social zeitgeist. It's funny. It is operating and it's working on the level of humor too. But also it kind of makes you hungry. It's like, well, actually tacos sound pretty good. I'm not the biggest fan of candy. I think most people don't eat a ton of candy, but tacos, that might actually be pretty good. So it's actually working to sell indirectly the product too. Notice how too, it looks like a normal kind of porch. This doesn't look like the entrance to some mansion. The porch is not perfectly swept. It looks like kind of a cheap, regular Halloween candy bucket. Even the cardboard sign, notice how it's not perfectly cut out. Like you could orchestrated this photo, which this photo is probably, maybe this is user-generated content. I don't see that it is, but I would bet that probably was organized by Taco Bell's marketing team or an agency that they pay. But again, it feels real because the scissors didn't cut perfectly around the edges of the cardboard. It's just little simple things like that. And it's not swept. It's like a dusty porch. It's like, wow, okay, someone actually lives there. This is a normal house. So it's also relatable, or I should say more real, doesn't feel orchestrated on that level too. And it gives the impression that, okay, like a human being actually set this up. All right, so what did you think of these 4 successful examples that we just walked through and did a detailed observation and analysis of what was working and in some cases what wasn't working to make them successful on Instagram for these different companies and brands' Instagram campaigns. Which one most resonated with you? What are your top takeaways? And what is one specific thing that you're going to actually make a note of to take action on within the next 2 to 3 days? Okay, so I want you to don't do this for me, do this for you, because a lot of people will watch this video, but very few will actually get a positive result. And if you're not using this to actually get results for your business, it's just entertainment. It's just mental masturbation. And I don't want that for you. I want you to get results. I want you to grow your business so that you can hopefully come back one day and share that in the comments or email us and perhaps become a client. And maybe you're already at that stage. And if you are, and if you want us to actually take action for you on tactics and tips and strategies that help your brand, your business to win and to grow, like in some of the examples here, because let's face it, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a marketer, you have a ton on your plate already. But with Grobo, what do we have to offer you? With Grobo, you can delegate unlimited marketing tasks and projects, but without the headaches of hiring. You get an all-in-one team. Okay, it's like project management software, but with proven pros already inside. So basically, you get an on-demand team of vetted, trusted human marketing professionals, copywriters, designers, developers, ads manager, strategist, project manager, and more, video motion graphics. And you pay a flat monthly fee, and it's an amazing price. It's a fraction of what you would pay to actually hire the team on your own, and no people headaches, no hiring headaches. You just delegate whatever you want to get done, and we get it done for you. And we have a little progress bar that goes from 0 to 100. So you always know where your projects and tasks are at, and you just have to talk or type to get them delegated. It's so simple. You can sign up for a $7 for 7-day trial and watch a demo if you have more questions by going to Grobo.com. So please like, subscribe, and share. That's one of the biggest compliments that you can give other than actually signing up to give it a try. So please like, subscribe, and share for more great content like this. And I will see you in the next video. So as always, keep growing and stay focused.